I'm in Max. You are listening to Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. I'm in Max. Pursuing the RPG hobby with reckless abandon.
Why, hello.
You're not wrong.
Welcome to Season 25, Episode 14 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
I'm Jason.
I'm Clara.
I'm Jim.
And I'm Adam.
And we're going to do a slightly different thing this time for our Friday night show.
Holy crap.
We have the GM and some of the players from Clockwise Court, which was in Chronicles of...
Old World of Darkness, Changeling the Dreaming, 20th Anniversary Edition.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to spend the first half of the show talking about that, talking about the game, what people liked, what they learned about it, stuff like what they enjoyed, what could have changed, things like that. And then we got a couple emails for the end of the show. But first, if you would like to email us, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. We have a forum, happyjacksforum.com. That's happyjacksforum.com. And we're on the social meteors. We're on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and MeWe. HappyJacksRPG, all one word. All one word, HappyJacksRPG. If you want to watch the show live, it starts at 8 or 7:10 p.m. Pacific time on Friday nights at happyjacks.org/live. And I think that's about it. Oh, the other two emails, so we're going to talk about that. And then Uncommon Man sends us a GMing exercise. And then some dude from Ohio, I don't know if he wanted to use his name because he didn't sign his email, sends us a GM horror story.
All right. He's an Ohioan. He doesn't need to.
Right.
None of us
So give me like what the sort of the premise of what Clockwise Court was about when you set up, when you were doing your prep for the game.
Yeah, you want
you were looking for.
The meta or the in-game?
Meta. Let's start with what your intentions were going into it.
So Changeling the Dreaming was one of the first games that I GM'd as an adult back in college, barely an adult. So, but I was about maybe 19 or 20 when Changeling the Dreaming came out originally, and I loved this game because I loved the idea of Fae. I loved all kinds of fairy tales and stories about Fae. And also I was just recently out of the closet, and there was a huge amount of queerness to it that was mostly implied but still there. And
is there queerness in Changeling? I didn't.
You didn't pick up on it?
I didn't notice.
Yeah, sorry, it's very subtle.
So am I.
As subtle as a unicorn horn. But anyway, so I had kind of a fondness for this particular game and system, and I had recently played a Vampire Dark Ages 20th Anniversary and realized it felt to me like World of Darkness had fixed a lot of the problems with the original system in the 20th Anniversary Edition that I think they fixed in a better way than they fixed for Chronicles of Darkness. I love Chronicles of Darkness as a system for human characters. I think the lore changes that they did were really not very enticing, at least to me. And I thought the system broke a lot more when you mixed splats. When you had mages and werewolves and vampires. Yes,
that's true.
Which I think is why they made it that way, was so you could have combined stuff, and I don't think it worked out.
That's what I think is that I think they tried to balance it more, but they actually broke it more. They broke the different splats when you combined them. And Tappy may have a completely different take on that because that's what Autumn People is right now, is a mix of the splats.
Right.
No, I talked to him about it. Yeah. He would agree with you that there are some issues. And I spoke to Eli about it too, who's playing that game. And said, there are a couple of problems with it. They're having a great time with it and they're enjoying exploring it, but there are some issues when it comes to game balance.
Like mechanical issues.
Yeah. So anyway, I felt like Old World of Darkness with these 20th Anniversary editions had really fixed a lot. And I also, because, I'm big into PBTA, and I was like, the way they've sort of set up success is you could kind of run it like PBTA with just a one success or 1 to 2 successes is a 7 to 9 result, and 3 or more successes is a 10+ result.
Right.
And you could kind of run it where the DM barely has to roll, and I wanted to try that. And then thematically, I things had been very cynical. We were in the darkest timeline in a lot of ways, and I was like, you know what? I want a game that makes me feel better. I want a game that cheers me up and is optimistic and hopeful, and like everybody's not out to get you. So sort of the opposite of most stories that we tell. Because most stories that we tell, you want there to be that intrigue and the betrayals and the twists and turns. And I was like, no, nobody here is going to be like inherently evil. They're just out for their own thing, and everybody's pretty upfront about it. The bad guys are bad, and the good guys are good, and you're going to know which is which. And so I wanted to bring more of that fantasy kind of black and white morality to it, so that I could have a game that was optimistic and hopeful and cheered me up. And I talked to Kimmy about that in the casting. I'm like, I want everybody to know, like, this is supposed to be a game. It's just cheery fluff, and I'm not gonna be like, oh, let's have a dark moment and who's betrayed you.
No, I'm sorry I brought in such a dark and brooding character.
Yes.
Yeah, honestly, you kind of brought us down.
Yeah, I apologize. I didn't
really screwed that up, Jason.
Yeah.
So okay, let's go around the table. What character did you make, in just kind of a brief description, not like a 20-minute, here's everything about my character, because that we have a tendency to do that in this office.
Tell me about your character.
So I really do get a feeling that I was invited to be playing this game because I'm old and I've played all of these old white people.
And thank God you have, because you were one of the best sources for rules.
And the fact that I had not only played but I had run Changeling back in the day, back in the 90s. Now, my idea of what Changeling was and the way that I played it is radically different than your interpretation of it was, and it was actually a breath of fresh air when I came into the game, because there are a lot of dark tones to all these white.
Absolutely,
Changeling is no exception to that. But the thing about it is that thematically speaking, Changeling's primary theme is hope, and that is something that's not so much present in Wraith or Mage or Werewolf or Vampire. Yeah. So it's by its essence more upbeat, but also it's themed around the death of innocence, which is probably one of the darker things that you can explore really from a very personal horror point of view, which is one of the things that's really wonderful about Changeling. It has a lot of variance in what you can do with it. When I made my character, what I wanted to do was I wanted to explore the progress of complete and total self-involved youth into a realm of higher responsibility, and while still maintaining a sense of wonder and still maintaining the core that makes a child in the fact that they're absorbers of joy. And so I made a character that was probably a little bit more angry and brooding than the other characters, even though she was very silly. But all of that was just informed by the fact that she was never really given a lot of good sources as far as good examples of how to be a grown-up, because her parents were kind of absentee. And I really wanted to sort of like, she never wanted to stop being a kid, and that was her whole thing. But the world that moved around her basically forced her into taking responsibility and doing things. So she had to reconcile that within herself. And that was basically the entire source of what I planned to have be the arc of the character. Because when I come up with a character, I just kind of sort of consolidated around who they are now and what their goal, who they want to be is, and then sort of develop that arc within the story that you're telling. So I could tell my own private story within the story that you're telling. And that's basically my process for making that character.
Clara?
I played Fallon Holger, who was a troll, and 100% sprang from the notion of having a computer troll. Like, I wanted to make that pun, and I made it, and then it got weird. Also, I've now played 2 blue characters on Happy Jack's podcast.
Yes.
But
Smurfs? No Smurf yet?
No Smurf. If someone has a Smurf game, can you send it to us, and I'll just play Smurfette. It's fine.
I'd love to see you cosplay that, actually.
I would like to see, as a Smurf, what vehicle you would jump onto.
Just
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing. Apparently now jumping from one moving vehicle to another or
Has
in
become
any
a Clara
form
thing.
is just what I do in games now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had started with this idea of like, okay, I want to play a computer troll. My kind of default for a new system, because I'd never played Changeling before, is play something that stabs other things. And so I will admit it was also while I was building my Twin Mask character, so I was kind of going through a night phase. I still am. So all of these powers combined made Fallon, who was kind of wanted to be like, who was both a computer programmer and like a digital security person, but also ended up being Mini Zuckerberg, ended up being a knight in training. But that is not the most interesting thing about them, because it turned out we had a Selkie in the group, and whose whole thing, Gina's character, whose whole thing was, being in love with love. And through just kind of organically, we had come up with that they were roommates, and they had done and I was playing a character that it felt natural to have them be a little bit non-romantic. And I'd sort of I came at the character with like, okay, they'll be at least non-binary, some flavor of non-binary, and then they kind of just decided to be asexual. And it wasn't a big deal to me, but I realized I kind of wanted to bring something. I wanted to do it justice, and I don't know if I did. But we ended up the big thing about Fallon was that they ended up sort of having to come to terms with the idea that like asexual and aromantic are two different things, and what does that, like, can you, and what is it, and that kind of love is not just being sexual or being romantic with people the way she'd seen it in Charlie, which was the Selkie. And I think it was interesting to play with. I would have liked to try if we'd had a longer game or more, I don't know, if we hadn't been trying to be brief, it would have been nice to try that out more, or to explore that more. But also, like, it's hard to tell that story or like the story of growing up or whatever within a larger story that has to be.
I didn't expect sexuality to be such an incredibly well explored part of this game, though, and it turned out to be, and it was fantastic.
I didn't, and it just kept happening.
Yeah, exactly.
In very, I think, very unique and interesting ways, and very much getting away from like traditional ideas of relationships and sexuality, and things really, we were very different in approaching issues of sexuality and romance, and that was kind of a fun thing that just happened by accident. So, and then I'll just jump in here real quick before we move on to the next one, professional guest star. But we also had, in addition to Gina, who couldn't be here tonight, we also had Rob, who couldn't be here tonight, who played Tommy, who is a slua and police detective. So slua are like really quiet, and they sort of keep secrets and protect secrets and trinkets. Okay. So he was kind of the more sobering aspect of the group. So he is kind of the adult in the room, and then Gina.
Wait, Rob was playing the adult?
Yeah.
Well, he has the dad jokes. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and then Gina, as Clara mentioned, was playing Charlie, who was kind of in love with love. And those were the four characters that we started out with.
And then I barged in with Reginald von Hornsby, the energetically pansexual, hard-drinking, smoking, partying, anthropomorphic, unicorn satyr sky pirate captain.
Awesome.
You did earn that captainship back, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Briefly admiral for just a moment.
Yes.
And then,
And, like, a captain even without a ship, really.
Yeah,
Like,
right, yeah.
I mean, exactly. You bury yourself with that kind of authority wherever you go.
Now, did you have like a character arc intention when you came
not
in?
really, because I thought I was coming in for a one-shot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And
But everybody fell in love with you,
Right.
as we do.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons we wanted to kind of come on and talk about this is because I think in a lot of ways, even though on a personal level, I felt some sort of sense of failure at some points in this process, because I'm like, there came a point where I'm like, I have to end this. I can't keep doing this game, no matter how much I love it. And we'll get to that later. But But we had a lot of scheduling issues and lots of people, just because of circumstance, people just kept having to miss games for, no control of their own. And so the first time that happened, that we were going to be missing 2 people, because we had one character building session where we had all 4 of us here. And then otherwise it was a 4th session before we got all 4 people together.
Wednesday games were rough, man.
Yeah.
And then we never had a group to the whole
we
group
never
together again.
Yeah. So we got to this point and we were just going to have 2 people, and I'm like, I don't really want to cancel. I think we had canceled the session before that, and it was kind of last minute. And I called up Jason. I'm like, hey, would you want a guest star? Because I just set up this situation where at the end of last session, a pirate ship just showed up from nowhere, and out of the blue, and so got an easy opening to bring in a guest star here, so that we're not down to 2 people, and or actually it was going to start out with 2. We were going to ultimately have Clara here too, but she had work issues, and was going to be like an hour late or more. So I called up Jason and offered him, and he's like, is an anthropomorphic unicorn pirate captain too much? And I'm like, no, that's exactly the right amount of much. Let's put that together. Yeah. And he kept coming up with all these ridiculous ideas, and he's like, that's too much. No, that's exactly where this story needs to go.
I'm going to go until somebody says no.
Yeah. And we just, and because we kept having one person miss almost every single session after that, it was just like, well, come back, Jason, because Reggie is wonderful and we all love him. And he became the de facto 5th member of the court. So, even though it was never intended. It was just intended to be a one-time.
I served at the pleasure of the court. I was not a member of the court.
I think you were the pleasure of the court.
Ideally, yes.
Bam. Yeah.
So the 2 of you who actually kind of had sort of like goals for what your character arc might be during the course of the story, did you share that with Adam?
I don't remember.
I don't believe I did. No.
It came up. I think... So one of the things that I learned very many lessons in this session.
Yeah.
But one of the things I didn't even know I wanted to do a character arc or anything until 2-3 sessions, and I was like, I guess this is where we're going. Cool. I guess I'm here for it. But I know I messaged Adam, and I was like, I was like, here are the things I'm playing with. This is what I want to. I think this is where we want to go. I think this is you don't have to facilitate it, but if you'd like to, would you be open to it?
Yeah.
And I feel like that was something that a GM had us do years and years and years, had me do years and years ago, was just tell him what I wanted to do with my character, and he'd keep it in mind, and if it was something that, if he found the way we were going facilitated that, he would. So it was I was glad Adam was open to just being like, yeah, sure, why not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't think people players, do not be afraid to tell your GM exactly what you want.
Right. Oh, yeah. Please, yeah.
It's a conversation, and the more communication you have with everybody, the better off you're going to be. But Adam is so incredibly open and sharing, and it's just a pleasure to play in your game because it's you get immediate feedback. You always get immediate positive feedback. You're as thrilled about us having fun as anything else.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
When I played in your, what was that game that we played at Con?
The Good Society?
Good Society.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Had such a blast in that.
One could say you're a real fan of the players.
Yeah.
I am.
Or the characters, even.
I am.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when I think that good games flourish from that kind of environment.
Yeah.
When everybody's a fan of everybody else on the table.
Yeah.
Because that's when the thing is, intrigue and those kind of things that you mentioned that you didn't want to be part of your game, they're actually great things to have in a game.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a certain lack of communication and you don't have that kind of everybody's sort of a fan of everybody else's character on the table, those things can tend to devolve.
Yeah.
At that point, but it's all about. I'm not a huge spotlighter where I get all kinds of upset if I don't get like my own time, and I'll find my way to wedge myself in. I'm a very confident player in that. But more often than not, I the way I look at it, I get more pleasure out of somebody else doing something brilliant and me just watching it and having fun.
That's really fun.
Than the mild ego boost of doing something cool and people cheering at you too, which is fun and good as well. But if you're not here for the social aspect and to look at your friends in the eye and enjoy them enjoying themselves, you're missing out on one of the great things about this hobby.
Yeah. I find that's the reason I keep coming back to GMing, even though that was never my natural state as it was being a GM. But especially like the more I've gotten into these GM reacts type of games, I find that it suits more of that feeling I always had, where I don't want to be sitting here thinking about my character and what I'm going to say next and what I'm going to do next or when's my turn. I want to just fully focus on the other characters when they're doing something cool. And I think that's something I get out of GMing that I'm not as good at focusing on when I'm a player, And so, like, when I'm GMing, all I have to do is sit back and enjoy the people at the table, and it's super fun now.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, that took me years to learn, is how to not over prep, not get so incredibly involved in everything, but to actually just let go and go, all right, man, I'm not even driving this boat, but we're partying on it.
Yep.
Let's take a trip around the bay.
Right? Yeah.
So let me ask you, and anyone can answer this. What did the sort of story arc of the campaign end up becoming? Obviously, there's what you intended. If you had anything intentional.
Well, and that's something that I felt worked out pretty well. Is that previous World of Darkness campaigns that I've done, in World of Darkness is a pretty crunchy system. So any crunchy system, I generally have done a lot of prep, and I had would have a lot of world building. I'd have every NPC would have a fully fleshed out character sheet done by the rules. I decided very early.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Never do that.
Oh no, I would do every single one and like stat them out, and then I would add people like a prince of the city would obviously have as many points as I wanted. But otherwise, I would have a fully fleshed out sheet for every single NPC. And this one, I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to set up. I'm going to have a system, and I'm going to have every NPC. I'm just going to write down their name and then like brief who are they? Like knocker computer programmer, and
Fucking Nip-Knock.
love that character. And then they each had 3 stats, and I gave them a mental, social, and physical, and then I assigned a number. So and it was either 8, 5, or 3. So their strongest thing would have an 8, their lowest thing would have a 3, and the other one would have a 5. And that's the dice pool that I would use if I had to roll for something for them. And so that's just kind of and then if they didn't need to be opposed, I was just going to be like, okay, you roll your dice, and one or 2 is a success with cost, 3 or 4 is like you did it. And 5 or more is you did it and it was amazing. What else is extra awesome about it? So, and I didn't plan out anything else about the story. I came up with the title Clockwise Court, and I'm like, what can I do around that? And then I'm like, oh well, I've always Changeling has this huge court system and all of this medieval government structure, and I'm like, you know what? Let's just kill the king, so that I don't have to keep track of who's in charge and and what's this court stuff and the houses and all that. I'm like, let's just kill the king and everything's in chaos and nothing matters. and then I'm like, oh my god, these should be the people that get to decide. This is going to be the story of who decides who the next ruler is going to be. And I'm like, well, it's Fae, so I need a prophecy, and it's got to rhyme. So I did this little 4-line prophecy And I'm like, I have no idea what this means, but they're going to tell me.
And we did.
You did.
Well,
I wrote that rhyme, and I'm like, this is the story, and I'm going to reveal it to them in the first episode, and then they will, like, whatever they come up with, I'll choose secretly and be like, yep, that's the one. And when they get them all, the story's over.
Having been in the game where we had months of game time, and then that was over like half a year of playing.
Yeah.
Been in a game where the GM had this one idea of the one solution that we had to, what is the term I came up with last time? Grail-roading.
Grail-roading.
Right. That was so good. Yes, grail-roading.
And let us
trademark
just wandered off in the wrong direction on a ship somewhere, and then revealed that, nope, that was the wrong thing. None of that's going to work. All of that's wrong. You guys are idiots for not figuring out my problem. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to make it next ever week. So have fun, y'all.
Right.
Right.
That was in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay too, which is already a crunchy, difficult system to get buy-in.
And
I'm
survive in.
Yeah, like you gotta have a little bit of flex to like just move the story forward.
Yeah. Also, it worked out so well that you played it, like, I think after every game you were like, I don't know what you guys are doing. I don't know what the prophecy means. And we'd get back to the table and be like, you have all the answers. Tell me.
Well, because you guys I would have no idea at the end of the story, and then by the time we got to the next session, I'm like, oh, I know exactly where this is going to go. And then they would do something completely off kilter, and I'm like, oh, that's way better anyway. Okay. Right.
Yeah, the thing is that there was so much of us just bouncing around, just doing stuff.
I had this line, a trinket lost, jewel crown lost and trinket found. And the very first episode that we started playing, that we weren't doing world building, that we were actually like interacting in character. The very first one, Clara's character flubs a roll to bring a plant, or to turn a plant into a internet line or something.
Yeah.
Connect a plant to the internet.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. And
Plant-based Wi-Fi.
Yeah. And something about the way she was doing it, I decided she failed it like really bad, botched it, and I was like, you know what? I think it was it didn't understand chain or something or net, and it thought you meant necklace instead or something like that. Turned it into a necklace, and she's like, well, that sucks, and she throws it out the window. There's
a trinket lost.
There's the pixie that just loves finding things.
Right?
And she goes, oh my god, this literally fell from the sky.
Yeah.
This is awesome.
There it is. Trinket found, done. And so the only line I really had was Kingdom Come and King Come Down, which was basically the High King had been killed. And everything else, they just started coming up with stuff. And But yeah, I mean that was like, well, there's that one.
Well, one of the favorite parts for me was coming in. I knew, oh, cool, I'm a pirate ship captain. I'm this ridiculous fucking unicorn. I want a fun name for the ship, and I was like, oh, can we call it the Clown Jewel? Right?
Yeah.
Before I knew about this.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thing, and so then you repeated the thing. I was like, wait, did I? No, I hadn't listened to. I was gonna still go back and listen because it was like a last minute thing to jump in, and I hadn't listened to all the episodes, and it was just like the best coincidence of my gaming career.
Like, there it is.
A fun game is like a really good jam session.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And that's exactly what this felt like to me the entire time.
Yeah.
It was just like this really, really good jam session.
Yeah.
Where everybody just threw in a riff. And everybody just played off it like instantly, and there was no hesitation, no like, it was just like fun, whatever, let's do it.
And I'm gonna say, Stu, I learned it from watching you, Dad.
That and the cocaine abuse?
Right, yeah. So one of the things...
you okay?
One of the things I noticed...
All right, millennials, just so you know, that was a commercial that ran way back in the day.
Please explain that joke. I didn't get it.
Where a parent caught a child doing drugs,
Yeah.
and the child just goes, I learned it by watching you, guilt trip.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
really great.
So I've suspected for a long time, starting with the Kintsugi Chronicles, and then listening to you play in other games when you have Kimmy and Stork at the table, and I've suspected for a while that you don't actually do a lot of the prep that you say you do. You just set up something and then let Kimmy and Stork debate it until you decide which one is the most terrible choice they could make, and then okay, that's the one. All right, go ahead. What do you?
Kind of. Yeah. Kind of. I usually come up with a whole bunch of different story ideas and start throwing them out.
Yeah.
In the hopes that they'll pick one of them up.
Yeah.
And then that's what I go with.
Yeah.
Usually.
Is it? I just noticed that Kimmy and Stork will debate every hypothetical in your games. And I'm like, I bet Stu's just there, eating this up. Well, okay, there's next session. There's
Let me tell you, man, towards the end of that Katsugi Chronicles, it says, I'm just going to go kill somebody. What?
Yeah.
Let me stop and say, no, these guys are talking too much.
just go
I don't
kill.
let my Tetsubo do the talking.
Right.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, just to kind of wrap up, what
Yeah.
was sort of your high point of the game, and is there something that you would have changed or you would have liked done differently?
Can I go last on this?
Yes.
Right, let's go
Oh,
around.
how about
Anyone.
you go
I
first?
don't want to go first. You go
Oh,
first.
Should we roll a die?
All right, high points for me.
can't pick.
Let's see.
Yeah.
I'm not going to actually choose a moment for my high point. What I'm going to say was the high point of this game for me was the fact that the NPCs were so incredibly brilliant and fun, and were such a motivation for the rest of the characters. And there have been a lot of games that I play in where the GM will pick an NPC or two and maybe overplay them a little bit and have them take a little bit too much spotlight. And
I can be
that's
bad about that,
I
too,
think that's a
sometimes.
cardinal sin of GMing in a lot of ways, because you're supposed to let your players take the spotlight.
Yeah.
But not only did the NPCs not really take any of the spotlight, they actually shone spotlight on us. And a lot of times the NPCs had such very well detailed motivations or characterizations that people like Tommy would go, "Why are you guys not friends?"
Rude.
And create this actually really cool RP situation where he sort of forced us to sort of do certain things and become maybe even better Fae from the result of it. But I really enjoyed. I loved hating Nipnops. The characterization of the Queen was great. The ship itself was fantastic.
That was amazing.
But
Still, that was an NPC that let you shine
Exactly.
in your relationship with it.
Oh my God, yes.
And the fact that my character was so effed up that she didn't trust people or anybody enough to want to love them. She could only love things because they wouldn't let her down.
But then the things came to life,
And then
loved
the
her
things
back.
came to life.
Yeah. Partially because of her love, too.
Partially because
Yep.
I wanted it so much, and I was so actually intrinsically lonely that I just put a piece of myself into it, and that became a big part of my character, and that was part of the development that you helped me with. So I'm going to say the high point of this was the fact that I loved the NPCs. I loved how they interacted with the players, and I loved how they progressed the story.
Yay. Thank
And thing you would change?
Thing I would change, the only real thing I would change about this entire experience was the fact that there was enough of it. And that I wish there wasn't as many scheduling problems. I being guilty of it as well. Because I think this game was really truly at its strongest when all of the cylinders were firing at full, and we all were at the table contributing. Because once again, in just about every Happy Jacks game I ever play in, the table is just so incredibly fantastic and creative. And I just sometimes wonder, when Tommy wasn't around, I wonder what Tommy would have done.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I thought about that a lot.
Or when Gina wasn't around, I wonder what would have happened here. And I'm left with that sense of what if throughout the whole game. But other than that, man, I just had a blast all the way through.
There aren't a ton of, the whole game is really good, and I think I'm going to try to play Changeling again with a different group. I'm going to be really upset when it's not this game, because I'm told World of Darkness games have a lot of rules.
Yes. Yeah.
I did not use any of them. It took like 3 games for me to remember that we had magic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was bad. I think high points for me, being able to tell our stories in have individual stories come out within the framework of a larger story, because I think that's something that's really hard to juggle in tabletop games, especially with 4 players, 5 players, because it's something I think about a lot, which is like, how do you share the spotlight and how do you plan these? How do you tell and make everyone feel included? And I think Adam did a really good job moderating that. And I still think that I kept taking over, and I feel bad about it. And then having to be like, no, you're just anxious. It's fine. The thing I think I would change, not a lot. I mean, scheduling issues. To be fair, it was a really good lesson. The other thing I would change is like the amount of singing we did was just a lot.
Yeah. So you would want more?
Actually, the high point was with the NPCs was the fucking bleakness, or no, what is it? The tapestry.
The tapestry.
The fucking tapestries, but the tapestry of
banality.
Of banality.
Yeah. Fuck yes.
And I think that was from you stalling.
Yeah, actually, that's one of my favorite moments.
It totally was.
Yeah.
It was. Did you take the tapestry with you? Yeah. Shit, I'm wearing it as a fucking cape.
Basically, they asked a question. So the tapestry was going to reveal some information, and they asked the question, and I had no idea how to answer it. So I said, "Ask it again." And they asked the question, and I'm like, "Ask it again." And then on the 3rd time they answered it, by that was just enough time for me to like, oh, okay, here's the answer. So I made them start asking everything 3 times.
Yeah.
Because it's a tapestry, and then you got to ask it 3 times.
And that's
the rule.
That's how magic works.
And there's no frustration like troll frustration, because nobody got frustrated as much as you did, and it was awesome.
It was perfect and in character, though. Like that's what was so cool about it. Was
that was actually another high point. Another thing I liked that everyone chose to keep things in character as much as they could. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's because we were just sort of playing characters that were pieces of ourselves, or like trying to tell a story, but like I have a thing about metagamers and the fact that like I could talk to the GM and be like, hey, this is where I want to go, but we're just gonna figure out how to get there on our own. We actually had some outside RP because Jim's character was having some trouble figuring out how they were in the story.
How I was connecting with the other characters, especially the female characters, or it's just when I made the character a lot younger than the rest of the player characters. When I usually play Changeling, we tend to play characters in their teens, and everybody was pretty adult coming into it. So I ended up having to change a few things about my character because there was going to be some sexuality in the game. We didn't want anything to be creepy. Which I totally agree with. So I aged her up a little bit. Well, the thing is, when we did the prequel, she was 16. When we actually did the actual story, she was 18.
Hey, time's weird in Faye.
No, I mean a couple of years had passed. That's fine to understand. It was a radically different character when I first wanted to start playing her, because I had to like make that sort of change. But I worked with it.
But yeah, he reached out and he was like, well, can we do a little bit of RP so that we can sort of figure out how that relationship works now? And Gina and I were like, yeah, sure, of course. And it was one of those things where it was like, it's something that I think I forget about as a player in other games, where it's like, you can have consequence-free RP, and if it helps everyone else's character and mood get together better, just fucking do it. So that was nice.
And that's the thing, is that's the practice that I've been in for years and years. There have been a lot of times where we're playing a game, and I would be giving the GM a ride home, and then we'd sit in the car and say, hey, I have this thing that I want to do about a scene with this NPC, sort of hash this out, and we just do it in the car on the drive over there. And then I'd write it out, and I'd email it to the rest of the party, and so we would do character development where other people didn't have to be sitting at the table going, when do I get to talk? But you still got to hash that stuff out. People got to read about it and listen to it. And I think that actually adds a lot to a game because you can do a lot of little side development that way. Just between and even if it's 2 player characters going, I want to do blah 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 blah, and just having a conversation, and then when you resolve that, giving it to the GM, what do you think? And actually giving them like a little bit of fiat, going, can we just tweak that or whatever, because you want to fit into the game. But it's really important to have like this conversation. I'm saying it's a conversation. The more you talk to each other, the better it's going to be.
Yeah. Do you have any high points? Anything to improve?
Yeah, the high point was something that I've never actually seen be fun in a game before, was that our characters wrestling.
Oh my god, yes.
And normally, like, people will be like, oh, I want to show off how good a fighter my character is, blah, blah, blah. And we were, like, drunk at a feast.
Yeah.
And, like
you do.
Did a cute, fun challenge.
Yeah.
And it was also really fun for my character, who was just, like, energetically over-the-top sexual, to then strike up a friendship with a asexual, mid-romantic,
by the end there.
But to have that like extreme friendship kind of connection was really fun, in that it was based on like fighting, like fun fighting, but I'd never really seen that come off well before, so that was super, super fun. And I think probably the one thing I'd change is I felt like I was hogging scenes a little bit, and so I think I would have like tried to dial it back a little bit, even though the character is supposed to be ridiculous. I felt like I was a little like, look at me, because that's Reginald.
But the thing about Reginald though is that every time we did look at you, we actually ended up looking at ourselves in a certain way.
Whoa.
That's sort of the thing, is because you were so over the top.
Yeah.
That it sort of made me think, it's like, that's when I really started thinking about my character's sexuality and how I wanted to work that out. You made me sort of ask certain questions because you brought questions to the table.
Yeah.
And I really never felt like I said, I'm not particularly that much about Spotlight. I never really felt like you did.
Well, that's all right. I mean, I'm not fishing for that compliment.
What I'm saying is that I think that a lot of players that are conscientious players, and myself included, are very, very anxiety-ridden about how much spotlight they take and how much they take over conversations.
I'm sure that's true.
And people beat themselves up about it.
Yeah.
But trust the other players. If they say, no, it's cool, you're okay, you're okay. And I think that the people that ask themselves that questions are usually the players.
Yeah.
We need the scene hogs to think that about themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's like, if you're asking yourself that question, you're probably in the right.
Well,
is what I'm saying.
Unless
closer
it's
to
you.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Anything anyone else want to wrap up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so I had, in a world full of high points, there were 2 that just I lost it. I was so extremely thrilled about this, and one was when Jim's character starts flying with the ship, and Jim breaks into a like 80s kids cartoon theme song
like
for
off
his character
the top
in
of
the
your
ship.
head.
Yeah, off the top.
Like, just improvised.
It was
My
beautiful.
own version of Friendship is Magic. Yeah.
And it got stuck in my head multiple times since then.
And we
which
brought
is
it
the
back
worst.
too.
Yeah.
And then also when Jason debuted Reggie Von Hornsby, nobody knew that was happening, and Jason showed up like 45 minutes early and hid in the recording booth.
That was fun.
And waited till a cue, and I gave him a sound cue when I told them they saw his character, and he bust out and surprised Gina and Jim, who were sitting here, and Clara, who was listening on in her car on the way. And it was just a brilliant moment. But
that was a magic.
It's hot in there, huh?
yeah,
Actually, the AC kicked on. It was okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's an AC vent there.
Yeah. He wasn't wearing much anyways.
That's true. Yeah, my shirt was unbuttoned down here. And,
I'm just saying, dude.
Your wife's shirt.
This game made me question my sexuality in several different ways.
But one of the reasons I wanted to come on and talk about this game is because I feel like we did a good lesson, because I about several episodes in, I got to a point where I was at a place in my outside life, my real life, where I was like, I can't keep doing this show. And as much as I love this game and I love these characters, and it's really no problem to prep for, there was just this extra stress that was coming from all circumstances, and this was the easiest thing to to let go of.
Right.
And so as wonderful as it was exactly the game that I wanted to run and wanted to be playing with. But there was just that added stress of at once every other week I had to get here, and if I didn't, it was going to be a month before we got to play again.
Right.
And that really started to wear on me, and I made the choice to wrap things up early and end it early because I needed my personal sanity. And it sucked. It hurt because it's wonderful and it is exactly what I asked for, and you guys delivered it. But I feel like, as difficult a decision as that was, it was the right decision. And so I wanted to just kind of let people know, like, it is okay to take care of yourself as a GM, as a player. It's okay to say, no matter how much I love this, if this is the thing I have to let go of, this is the thing that's going to get let go.
Hobbies are designed to relieve stress.
Right. Yeah.
Not cause it.
Yeah. And it was tough, but I wanted to. I really just wanted that message out there that, like, this was, to me, a fairly flawless game. It was, and also, like, the lesson of being able to keep going even when you're having scheduling conflicts. And every single person at one point or another had a scheduling issue, and most of us multiple times. And we still managed to keep the game going, keep it flowing, keep the story moving as best we could. And and I think that's something that that we can be really proud of. And I'm very proud of this show and this story that we told. But I wanted people to sort of know, like, even those of us, you might be listening to us or watching us, to get advice or to learn how to play or things like that, and people will say nice things about us, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if I'm that good. But sorry, Clara I had to put in a self-derogatory jar.
So you're buying coffee.
Yes. Anyway, but we doubt ourselves as well, and we also have to make decisions sometimes that are difficult choices, no matter how much we might love the game. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there as sort of a GM success story in what I thought was a failure turned out to be a success.
And Rob and Gina, we love you. We miss you.
Yes.
I wish you were here, and you were just fantastic in this game. And I thank you so much.
Gina's in London, so I'm mostly just mad at her.
Right.
I want to be there.
Fine.
I don't do envy, Gina.
Yeah.
Have a lot of fun here
You
today.
have fun out there.
Right, yeah.
All right. There you go. Give us your feedback. We're thinking about doing this for other games as they wrap.
Yeah.
So let us know if you like this, think it should be a separate thing, integrate it with the show, whatever, and I'm going to do what I want. But but if it get a lot of feedback in one direction or another, then that's probably the way
and it
to
would
go.
only be once in a while anyway, because it's whenever a show wraps.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Although sometimes all the shows wrap at once, and you're
That's
like,
kind of starting.
It's
Yeah.
a little
Oh,
weird.
no.
Yeah.
All right. Who would like to read the email from Uncommon Man, jamming exercise?
I can do that.
I'm going to run it.
it starts in Swedish. So no.
Hey, Skitstovlar.
Nice.
This is the real Uncommon Man, not Jonas, who wrote the last letter. I heard you liked the Choose Your Own Adventure letter, so here's another possibly fun one. RPG tactics exercise in letter form. The setting and system is up to you. Go for what you usually run or something else. That's every system. That's everything. Whatever you usually run or something else is everything.
Not D&D. Continue.
The premise: the PCs have to get hold of the MacGuffin located in a tower. The
Is
question:
this 18-year-old MacGuffin or 12-year-old MacGuffin?
24.
Oh, then definitely I'm in.
Yeah.
Okay.
The questions: how completely do you map out the tower? What is the obstacles the players need to overcome to get inside? What is your favorite color? That's not in there.
Not it, no.
Is there someone waiting
yellow.
inside to fight the PCs? What bad thing when the PCs leave the tower? What bad thing happens when the PCs leave the tower with the MacGuffin? And the PCs decide that the tower is dangerous and hire a group of adventurers to get the MacGuffin so they can stay in the pub and drink. How does this work out for them? So, question one: how completely do you map out the tower, GMs?
I think we just had a long conversation about how we don't.
Not
It depends. Depends what kind of game I'm running.
Well, yeah.
Once again, my attorney friend says the answer to every question is it depends.
Right.
I do not recall.
If I'm playing a more tactical game, it's gonna be fairly detailed.
Yeah,
I
levels,
would say
staircases, whatever.
Yeah, I would say I don't run. I choose not to run games anymore that might require mapping out a tower. I was, and the last time I tried to run D&D, I'm like, you know what? No, I don't like this. I don't like running this anymore. I like playing it a lot. I don't like running it. So that's kind of where I chose to go.
It depends on style and depends on system. I would say. I mean, this entire exercise looks to me like Tower of the Elephant from Conan. But what I will usually do is that whenever I have an important NPC located somewhere in the tower, I'll usually at least jot down some notes as to what's in that tower,
Sure,
and what's in that section of the tower and how it's mapped, how it looks. Not necessarily draw it out, but at least have a good idea of what's going on.
I think an important detail of mapping the tower itself is you're probably thinking about like how tall is the tower, and it's important to have a plot appropriate number of floors.
Yes.
Because if the PCs are going in there and slogging through, and you know what, they're having fun beating up henchmen, more henchmen, and there's another floor in the tower, right? It's like they're having a blast. But if it's dragging and people are almost dead, and the point of the tower isn't do they die, right? Like that might be the point of the tower, but it's probably not, hopefully. If that's not the point of the tower, then I might lop out one of the floors I had roughly planned. I thought, are there 5 floors? Cool. Oh, well, that 4th floor, they're almost dead. Let's just get to the big bad, right? Or whatever that is. I think that's how much mapping I would do.
Yeah.
Regardless of the system, I was not aware we had homework for this class. So I know me as a GM. I mapped out as much of the tower at the first 3 floors, and then I got bored or distracted, and I got to this game, and I was like, I don't know, it's a tower, figure it out.
There's the real answer, folks.
Yeah, that's the real honest answer.
Yep.
Stu, did you want to weigh in on number 1?
I did already.
Oh yeah, okay.
I went first.
What obstacles do you need to overcome to get inside the tower?
Sturdy door and 2 guards that aren't asleep. That's my standard.
Okay. Are not asleep?
Not asleep.
Not asleep. Okay.
I'll tell you, when it comes to obstacles, I'm much more likely to map this out. I off the top of my head, if I need a default tower, it is on a cliff face surrounded by like 100-foot drop down into a river that's probably got like alligators and sharks in it, and like a 300-foot jump across, with only one bridge, and they're gonna see. I'm like, if there's a tower, like the real hard part for me is gonna be how do you get in that?
Really?
That's where I mess it up.
Yeah, I mean, you would build a tower in a naturally defensible area,
right? Yeah,
because it's a valuable thing that you've invested time and treasure into developing. So
towers are meant for observation.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, for a MacGuffin, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a MacGuffin tower. It's not like the corner of your house.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I usually, I think this is sort of like a game / GM style. Do you like to give your characters puzzles for them to solve, or do you like to give opportunities for characters to be super creative? And those aren't mutually exclusive. But what I like to do is I like to go, what would be impossible for me to do, and then put that on there and figure out how they're going to make the impossible possible.
Yeah.
And when you're playing a game like D&D where you have a shitload of different types of spells that do all kinds of things, one thing could be super easy just because you forgot somebody had a levitation spell. You're screwed,
Right.
you know. Or when you're dealing with something like Shadowrun, which the entire game is, how do I break into this, this thing? And how much of the game do you want that to be? Do you want it to be more of a puzzle for the characters to figure out, or do you want it to be more something that they overcome physically? If it's a puzzle, I'm probably not going to do the guard thing. I'm probably going to do what kind of combination, or figure. There's no door to the tower. How are you going to get in? There's a puzzle involved with that. And if the characters are like a bunch of fighters and a cleric, I'm going to go, there's 20 dudes out front.
Right.
Yeah.
Bring out the brute squad. I am the brute squad.
I am the brute squad.
So it depends on all of these things. You have to understand are you're trying to set a feel for a certain style of story that you want to tell, and the type of challenges that you provide your player characters are going to set the feel for that. So whatever falls within the parameters of what you want to do.
and the type of players, the type of characters that are there. I think.
I think you were right the first time.
Yeah.
From far away, there are two guys. I get there. They get there. I change my mind. It's a riddle. I don't know the answer to the riddle. Whatever comes out, this is what I'm doing. I am a terrible GM. and I need to make this very clear. I have not wanted to GM a Happy Jacks game because I'm very, very bad at preparing for things sometimes.
I find that people with a strong, certain mental agility that go with that factor sometimes are even better than the ones that overprep.
No, because what happens is I think I'm clever, and then I'm not. So, I'm like, there's no door! And they're like, yeah, we dig under. I was like, yeah, okay.
Challenged by your own humility, I can't.
A thing that I would want to do, which also leads into the number 3, is there somebody waiting inside? What obstacle the players? I would just say the door is just hanging open, halfway off the hinges.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
No one's
good.
around. It looks safe.
Yeah.
Oh, God, then you get 40 minutes of I check for
legit?
traps.
Right. Yeah.
I check again.
Yep.
Totally
20 minutes of
safe.
perception checks later.
Everything's
God.
fine.
That's my flavor of evil. And then something waiting inside is probably fairly, demonic, scary, voices in the dark, all that kind of stuff is what I like to have. What about you?
It's always, if my history has been any indication, it's always a necromancer at the top of the tower or a sexy demon lady, because that's the flavor of the week right now.
Porque no los dos.
Porque no los dos, yeah. And at one time it was one of the player's exes. So,
Nice.
normal
Same.
things.
The player's ex?
The player
Or the
character
character's
had
ex.
the player character actually. Let me just. This was my character had an ex partner because I had done a Runaway Bride character.
Yeah.
And it turned out that was the big bad at the end of our campaign,
Okay.
which was really nice for something I had made up when I was in 7th grade.
Nice.
Nice.
I like that.
Yeah.
What's waiting inside?
What's waiting inside? The MacGuffin is inside, and something is guarding said MacGuffin. So it could be like a spider in the ceiling that drops down.
Ooh, spiders. Yeah.
Classic.
But also, a lot of things that I like to have, especially when this part is basically a guy that's sitting there dying, going, "You really don't want this MacGuffin."
Oh, yeah, that's juicy.
That's nice.
I like that.
Yeah. And then make the character sort of sick and think, what are we doing?
Yeah.
That guy was weak. Time to get him
If
a
you
go.
take it, it will.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You don't write.
How do you write Argon Aramaic is all I want.
This is why we have Resurrected Dead.
Yeah. It's a tapestry.
Yeah. We know.
Yeah.
We know.
Yeah. Always have a tapestry inside. Waiting.
Smart. Always have a smart-ass tapestry.
Right.
Talking tapestries are probably one of the best things ever now.
It's so much fun.
Empty pedestal. Someone
Yeah.
already took it. You took too long to get.
Nice. Too many perception checks.
Right.
I tell you the time when we were playing Shadowrun, and I was with this other player character in the van, and they were going to go kill somebody in this bar, but there was no weapons allowed. And she literally spent a half hour trying to decide whether she was taking her gun in. By the time she finished deciding, I went back in the van, and go drive. I had already killed everybody.
Yes.
Love it.
Yeah, that is a pet peeve of mine, is players taking too long to make decisions.
Decision paralysis always gets me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A guy's walking
yeah.
out the other side like, oh, hey, did you want... I got it already.
I'd rather have a
That's-
bad
yeah.
choice than no choice.
That's when I railroad is if players are taking too long to.
Well, you need to-
I'll be like, okay, well, this happens now.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
like,
the whole
wait, what?
table
We were
benefits.
talking.
I mean, that person who's analyzing too much, or two people have hijacked the table from the rest of the people in the game, and hopefully the GM will find a gentle way to sort of dislodge this debate, and
Yeah.
maybe that's by dropping a street samurai on them, and
Yeah, well, certain players shouldn't have a character that has a shitload of options. If somebody has decision
Yeah.
paralysis,
Yeah.
do not give the character
Yeah.
a spell list.
right.
Yeah,
Right.
do-
We're going to be here all night.
That's why I
Give
like,
him a sword.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's why I like
No
playing.
shield,
Yeah.
just a sword. Go.
that
I
is
like
my
playing
entire-
fighters who have no social skills, because it's like, well, I got one solution for this, and if
Yeah.
you guys take too long, I'm just going to run in, either start talking, which is dangerous, or stabbing
Yeah.
people, which is less dangerous.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
we used to have a fighter that just say, Cameron, it's starting to look like a nail. Hold on, just
That's
Nice.
Yeah.
such a good line.
Yeah. Then
What bad thing?
The bad thing that happens when they leave the tower.
Oh, nothing. Everything is beautiful, and the
flowers
everything,
bloom,
right?
and
they feel strong and smart and powerful, and everybody loves them. And I let that ride until they're so terrified and paranoid of the other shoe that's going to drop.
The juice. I feel that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much mine.
When they leave the tower, there will be the constabulary will be there arresting them for theft.
Nice.
Even though it wasn't there.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite.
Dig your style from the Cthulhu game.
Yeah. I like bringing mundane consequences to the shit that some gamers do. Like when you murder people willy-nilly, don't cover up your murders.
Right? Yeah, they're shocked.
Yep.
Players are shocked.
Right.
Yeah,
to have consequences. I would have them leave the tower and forget that they were ever there. Or turn around and the tower's gone.
That's exactly what I said. The tower's gone.
They have the thing.
Nobody remembers that they got hired to take the thing.
Yeah.
They just have the thing.
What's this? I don't know. Putting it back.
And it's like it never happened, and they just have this golden goblin statue, and they're like,
yeah.
God, this is an ugly touching.
I love it.
Awesome hook. I love it.
Or they leave, and it's a completely new location, and you started your campaign.
Yes. Yeah, I like that too.
And I don't do homework for that one either.
If they stay in the pub and drink and hire someone to go to the tower for them?
I use the assassination table from the original D&D, which gives you a percentile chance that the assassin will just take somebody out, and then roll that. And they either succeed or fail, and then the session's over. We go drinking.
Yeah.
Wow.
We're not going to role play sitting in the pub drinking.
Yeah.
We're going to go to a pub drink.
Exactly. We just play Red Dragon Inn the rest of the night.
Right, yeah.
One of my actual sort of game nightmares was in college running Shadowrun for a bunch of 20-somethings. And these high-end professional killer criminals say their characters go to Dunkin' Donuts. And they're just sitting around at Dunkin' Donuts bullshitting. For like an hour of our table time. Hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, a lot. And I'm like, do you guys want anything to happen? Or like, do I need to be here for this?
And this is why you communicate with your GM.
Had they just watched Pulp Fiction?
I don't remember. I don't think so. That was really, I mean, that would have been late 90s when we were playing Shadowrun, so maybe.
Yeah.
Because I could see in the diner having the philosophical conversation
Right.
all day and night.
But they weren't even like planning a job. They needed to like go meet a fixer or something, and they, I was just pulling my hair out.
Yeah.
I actually had a Shadowrun game start where my thing was, you just went through the worst run ever. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Some people are missing parts. What happened? and basically, it became sort of a round robin of them, like that classic Batman episode, where like how we would kill Batman.
Oh,
Yeah.
Where all the villains are sitting in the round table, they're all telling their own story. So basically, everybody told a story of what happened in this run and tried to fit elements of the other people's stories in it. And we just told, and that because I had nothing ready for that night.
You did
Right.
like pre-Dakuma sort of situation.
Nice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it bonded the characters, and it was great.
I mean, like, if this is what happens, and if that had happened to me, like my players, and I had for a long time a group of players, which is why I stopped GMing, who just kept trying to break my games.
Oh, cool.
Which again, not hard considering what I've already said, but like I would have left. Fuck that.
What I ended up doing, and this is partially me being a shitty GM at the time, but I still feel justified, is that so at one point they look up and I was like, so the waitress is gone. And you're like, what? Yeah. Everyone else, they're like, you're the only one sitting in there. And then the like owner of the Dunkin' Donuts has come out with a shotgun because they're sitting there with their fucking guns under their coat. Like they're not hidden at all. You know, somebody's got a katana, obviously. It's Shadowrun. And the owner of this Dunkin' Donuts was a retired Shadowrunner.
Yeah.
It was like,
I know what you are.
coming out to like,
That's perfectly justified.
like I'm not going to call the cops. I'm going to just set you on fire.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, don't be a dick to your GMs.
Yeah.
They work really hard unless they're mean.
Yeah. I think what I would probably do is take the easy way out, and like, you know, a dragon starts attacking the town and like sets fire to the pub. So you got to deal with that now. But what I would like to say I would do is okay, you hired a group of adventurers to go get this MacGuffin. I want you to make these characters and then tell me how they die horribly.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, good
And,
call. I like that a lot.
Or
And,
they
like-
come back asking for their money.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Oh,
saying.
you don't have the 5,000 gold pieces you promised to them?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, I'm the girl who brought OSHA to a LARP, so like, not the real one, but I role played it, man, and they're mad at me.
I like
Nice.
it.
Yeah. Anyway.
All right.
Yeah.
There's also a horror story. Someone want to read the horror
Oh,
story?
I'm
yeah.
not reading that.
I can,
I just can't read things out loud.
okay. Anyone?
Yeah, just a little background to set the scene. I am 47 and have played D&D for a good chunk of my life. That is, until I moved to a very small town in central Idaho. By small, I mean about 600 people, including outlying farms and ranches.
Well, that's your problem right
Yep.
there.
Needless to say, not a lot of gamers. Don't get me wrong, I love the small town life and have a great job. To make matters worse, the nearest town that has players is about 3.5 hours away.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine my joy when, during a trip, there was a FLGS?
Friendly
Friendly
local
local
gaming
gaming
store.
Friendly local gaming store right across the street. There it is, right on the counter. In half an hour, a 5e game was starting. After inquiring about it, I find out that a character, dice, and adventure will be supplied. 5 minutes late, the DMs showed up. Yes, that was DMs with an S, as in 2 of them. Come to find out, both had prepped the module, both thought the other was playing, and both thought that they were going to GM the game. Now, this was not a co-DM situation, and the arguing started.
Oh, boy.
Off to a great start. Finally, they decided, and one of them took the screen. By this time, the other player had showed up. He was about 13, and of course, he had forgotten his character. To make matters worse, they did not have a character for me, so we both started to roll up some PCs. I like playing dwarves. I mean, obviously, I am 6'8". What other choices? And had a cool idea for a paladin. Fortunately, 5e character creation seems pretty easy, so I just followed the steps, and in about 15 minutes, I had an acceptable character. The kid, though, seemed to be having problems. He decided to make a mage of some kind.
See, I told you.
Oh,
Yep.
no.
Almost half an hour after I was finished, he finally picked his last spell, and we were ready to play. The entire time we were making characters, and for about 10 minutes afterward, the DM and some Magic the Gathering player were arguing about flat Earth theory.
That's so Idaho.
Run away! Run away!
What's the argument?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, if the DM was arguing against flat Earth, then,
Yeah, then that's
okay,
encouraging.
That's my,
I'm just
maybe
watching
okay.
red flags go by.
Yeah.
Flag on the field.
I know. That's the nice thing about a flat Earth. You can see the red flags from miles away.
Yeah.
It's true.
So, finally, over an hour late, we were ready to play, and with a sigh of relief, I told myself that the worst was over. Oh, how wrong I was. We were just getting started when a girl came over to the table. She mentioned that she was RPG curious and sat down to play. I was thinking, oh shit, another 20 minutes of character creation, when the GM handed her a filled-out sheet. Imagine my surprise when I discovered it was a pre-made paladin, just like the one I was told I wasn't available.
Yeah.
The adventure was some pre-made thing that was in the middle of some epic quest line. I don't really remember. What I do remember is when the DM and the ex-DM started arguing about the excessive use of a fine trap spell. Apparently, the normal mode of operation for this group was to just charge through and kill everything. Now remember, both of these guys had prepped for the same adventure, and there may have been a bit of player knowledge happening. One of the spells mysteriously failed, sending us all into a pit trap with a few giant rats. Afterward, we ended up in a cavern with some kind of lightning orb that completely wiped us out in 2 rounds of combat. Yes, I got 2 turns. The entire adventure took less time to finish than the prep time. Come to find out, the DM was pissed at his 2 regular players and decided to teach them a lesson.
Great.
The only apology made was when I brought up the fact that the girl and I had just sat down that evening for the first time. The icing on the cake was when he hinted that the players had the option of tipping the GM.
What?
He wanted us to pay him for a revenge TPK. This experience has not soured me from playing when I get the chance. I just hope the new girl didn't give up completely because of it.
Yeah.
P.S. Everything actually happened, including the flat Earth debate, something I thought only happened on YouTube videos.
Yeah.
Which makes me sound like they were arguing different reasons behind the flat Earth
Yeah.
theories.
Like.
Jesus Christ.
Ooh,
That's-
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm first of all, ow.
Al,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh.
I'm not sorry. I like horror.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
Because you went through that, and I feel your pain.
Yeah. We're
That's-
laughing at your pain.
I just got like secondhand rage. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem I see with a lot of old school. Well, not old school necessarily, but old fashioned type of players where it's this like I think a lot of people, especially the ones that stick with D&D and never branch out to anything else, and they're just like, this is the world's most popular RPG, it must be the only one. I think that sort of signifies a pathology of this is an adversarial transactional relationship with the other people at the table.
Yeah.
And it's a zero-sum game. I have to win. Even though there's no winning in terms of the game, I win by making you feel bad and making myself feel superior.
Well,
and there's such a tendency towards that.
Here's another
very broad generalization.
Very broad.
The DMs arguing now makes sense to me because they're thinking if I do well, I might get tipped. Like I might get paid to do this.
Oh, yeah, fuck
because
that.
I think I show up, I prepped a module which requires zero fucking prep. I read the module.
Well, you have to read it.
Right,
Which can be a chore.
Okay. I read a module. And I'm dyslexic, so it takes me some time. But still, I read a module. Somebody else shows up and says, oh, I was going to run the game. Fuck it, cool, I'll play. I would rather play. Like not always, but now I understand why they were fighting is they think they're going to get paid for this fuckery.
Right? But how much do you think you're going to make in tips from like a rando game with your two regular players and maybe other people will show up?
Yeah, that it was a public game that someone planned a TPK revenge game around makes me really upset. Because like, first of all, don't revenge kill your friends.
Right.
Like, here's an idea. Talk to them.
Yeah, have a conversation.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna make a terrible movie writer or something.
I'm assuming these weren't 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
To basically just
one was almost
not to contradict you, but I really don't think that it's a D&D thing.
Yeah,
I think that it's a thing about people that are not used to playing with people that aren't their friends, that will accept a certain kind of behavior from them, regardless.
Yeah,
and I think that it's a lack of social skills and a lack of understanding of the social aspects of the game. And the fact that I can walk up and meet my friend Mitch, and he'll bring his 1,000 Suns for 40K, and I'll bring my Black Templars, and he will literally beat the living shit out of me. But the understanding is that there's going to be a clear winner and a clear loser. We're here, two butt heads. That's the social contract we walk into. When I walk into a role-playing game, the social contract is different from me.
Yeah.
So the social contract is that everybody's going to try to facilitate everybody else's fun. We're going to have an adventure. Maybe not even tell a story. Have an adventure, and that everybody there will be conscious of everybody else's ability to contribute and have a good time. These people went into this obviously with a completely radically different agenda.
Yeah.
They went in there to speak to and interact with a very specific audience, and these other two people that managed to walk into the store were just basically
caught in a blast.
Just fodder and caught in the blast area of that fucknuttery.
Yeah.
But what I would have reacted to this is I would, in the middle of that, going, fuck you, you're kind of okay. Hey, chick, you want to go actually play a game? I'll run something right now. Because I would have not stood for that.
Yeah.
And I want to go, you guys obviously want to play your private game and circle jerk in the corner.
Right.
Why aren't they playing it at home?
And why
Right.
aren't they playing it at home?
Right.
Maybe they get kicked out.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get see these $40.
Their mom said,
if you would have see these $40, if you would have run a great game, I may have been able to give it to you. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take these $40 and I'm going to buy a player's guide and I'm going to give it to this girl.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I really hope that did.
And let
she's
her know
playing.
this is not how it
This is
always
not
is.
how this is supposed to work.
And
This
then
is not
also
how
tell
any
us
of
all
this
the
works.
Let's go make a character, and we will generate a story around your character.
Exactly.
With RP.
The thing is, you obviously got your head screwed on right. Dude from Idaho.
Yeah.
And you know what's going on. But the thing is, it's incumbent on people that have their heads screwed on right to do the right thing.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. The horror story was not Uncommon Man.
No.
Oh, I see.
And
Okay.
there are plenty of online options for playing TTRPGs, aren't there? I don't know of any, but I know they exist.
They're out
and
there.
like being isolated is obviously not. It shouldn't be a barrier to you if you want to,
Yeah.
All
have
my
a
friends live in
group.
Southern California, and we still play over Discord.
Yeah, because driving across LA is a fucking nightmare.
Okay, yeah. How long did it take you to get here tonight, Jim?
About an hour and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a pretty good drive.
Which was pretty good.
Yeah.
Because I was
like,
expecting 2 hours. I actually managed to stop and get something to eat. It was great.
That's like 25 miles. Yeah. Driving home from, I had to drive from Culver City to Glendale last night, which is, it is...
like 10 miles?
It's like, I think
like
12, 13, 12 or 13.
Yeah.
12 or 13 miles, and it took me an hour and 45 minutes. That is a literal thing that happens here.
Oh, yeah.
It's just
You can curl
ridiculous.
your hair in that time.
Anything,
Ask me how I know.
especially if it involves the west side at all.
Right?
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. I finished. I had about an hour left, or an hour. I had almost 2 hours of the last episode of Wild Wild Talents to finish, and I got through it. Ended right when I got home. So yeah.
Quick question: how much does one tip a GM, and where can I get tipped for being a shitty GM? Because apparently that's like a normal thing.
Right.
I've never had that experience.
Me neither.
Yeah.
There
I've
are
never even
people
had
I heard tell that there are people who will pay someone to come GM a game for them.
I've heard of this as a thing, and,
Yes.
and like there was a article I read about a guy who basically gets paid to go around in town and GM for people.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the only person I know of who does that works in education and like does role-playing games as like a corporate thing where you're like getting people to do teamwork shit.
Oh, right.
You know?
Yeah, team building stuff.
Yeah.
A guy that does our party games at con does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw
But he does board games and stuff.
You know, I think this is a
Mostly
great
social
practice,
justice.
though. So you guys can each give me $20 right now.
Yeah, no.
Not gonna happen.
I actually saw someone posting recently on Twitter that like this is they posted a Vimeo link or something.
that'd
I was
be
like,
great
this is
porno.
my gaming
I can't
reel,
pay
and I
you,
was
GM.
like,
Is there some other way?
the fuck is a
gaming
gaming reel? No. Wait, I have to make a reel for this shit?
Better call that a gag reel.
Yeah. No,
All right.
but
Speaking
like,
of gag reel,
Heyo. Sorry, Canada.
All right, I'm going to close it out here.
okay.
Great point.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you, everyone,
thank
for
you
for
listening.
coming in.
yeah.
But
do we
wait.
say-
Thank
are
Thanks
we
for
supposed to say
having
a
us.
thing?
Of course.
Are we out?
No.
Oh, damn. I don't know how he's in.
Stu closes it out. Let's go.
Thank you for joining us for season 25, episode 15 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu,
I'm Jason.
I'm Clara.
I'm Jim.
And I'm Adam.
and we'll see you next week, Friday at 7:09 p.m. Pacific time. HappyJacks.org/live, and until then, we'll leave you with a song. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Show won't start on time, the wait won't be in vain. For the host will drink and yammer on till no emails remain. Oh, Happy Jacks, our patron saint of the skillful game master. Oh, guide us well with yes ending to avert a disaster. Whether fate or GURPS or millions of apocalyptic acts, fellow listeners and every host will always have our backs. Unless you're playing D&D and then they'll give you crap.
There are many organs in the torso. Some are less important, some are more so. Some they make us laugh and some they give us gas. But if they preclude my drinking, then they must go. Oh, liver, let die. Liver, let die. Oh God, please deliver cirrhosis of the liver. Liver, let die. Well, the barber surgeon used to tell me that my nightly drinking, it would kill me. He said there was no doubt that my liver would give out, but nothing but that bone will fill me. Oh, liver, let die. Liver, let die. Oh, God, please deliver cirrhosis of the liver. Liver, let die. So let's drink a toast unto my passing.
And with all those aspersions they are casting, it appears I'll be the last. So to those that pass, I'll raise a glass, for it seems that all my doctors I'm outlasting. Oh, liver, let die, liver, let die. Oh God, please deliver cirrhosis of the liver, liver, let die. Oh, liver, let die, liver, let die. Oh God, please deliver cirrhosis of the liver, liver, let die.
The preceding program has been a presentation of the Angry Folk Media Empire.
Bum, 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 bum.
You know, that's just like your opinion, man.